Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Here we are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bob, Fork in the Road. And another undisclosed location. Well, mail place, they only let you stay online for like 20 minutes, so that's what happened to the show. Anyway, here we are waiting for you to comment on the last 3 weeks of our American Union or disunion. And the guys who
Seniors, this is better than Social Security because if you're 65 or older on Medicare or Medicaid,
Palestinians too far. Look at this guy. It's like sundowning. You're seeing these photos of him at the Super Bowl. He was only able to make it to halftime, and then he left early. And then as soon as he left, the Kansas City Chiefs got their first touchdown in a game that was otherwise a blowout after Donald Trump predicted the Chiefs were going to win. Samuel L. Jackson was there in the halftime show, the Kendrick Lamar halftime show, and Samuel L. Jackson was dressed as Uncle Sam. And even Samuel L. Jackson's like, look at this guy. What in the world is going on? It was a good troll right there. You had Trump's head ferret from that back shot right there, stormed off the field in halftime. And then while all of this was going on, there's serious things taking place, like all of Donald Trump's threats of like tariffing everybody's backfiring in his face. Beginning Monday, China is implementing its tariffs up to 15% on $14 billion in U.S. exports, including LNG, coal, crude oil, farm equipment, and select vehicles, as reported by the Financial Times. They actually included additional things to tariffs as well. And by the way, before the Super Bowl, I went to my supermarket just to see, needed to get stuff, but I looked for the price of eggs, $11.49 for eggs. But Dr. Jill Biden was at the Super Bowl. She was rooting for the team that won, EAGLES, Eagles. You see her there with her family. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, I think it puts it all in perspective. Check out MidasPlus.com. He curates MidasPlus.com. Filipkowski goes, while Musk runs the country, Trump had a productive weekend naming himself chair of the Kennedy Center, picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, canceling pennies, demanding Google Maps rename Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America, inviting only white immigrants from Africa to immigrate to the United States while revoking TPS status, temporary protected status, of Venezuelans and other Latinos. And he also did an executive order trying to save plastic straws. And as Filipkowski says, when do we get to the lower prices thing? When do we get to the lower inflation thing? When do we get to the creating more jobs thing? But MAGA was infuriated by that halftime show. You had all the MAGA influencers like Eric Dougherty saying, raise your hand if you survived the Black Nationalist Super Bowl halftime show. Or Matt Gaetz goes, the halftime show you just watched is clearly the regime's response to Trump's historic gains with black men. And as the note here says, Kendrick Lamar was announced as the halftime show several months before Trump won. What do you mean the regime? Like literally, Gates, you are the regime. Trump's the regime. Trump's the government. Y'all are just going to pretend for the next 4 years that that former President Biden is in power. Y'all are in power. You made a bunch of promises you're not able to keep. So
That's a good portion of the public media.
Everything okay?
Always great. You're the best. So, what is truly missing here, I talked to a number of people last night, is so one of my sisters is a total mega Donald Trump freak, Texan, born again Christian, and she's, and I keep telling her that Donald Trump's the best thing ever. He's sliced bread. He's the best because he is going to destroy the United States. And the United States will no longer be number one. It hasn't been really number one in the last 20 years. And it's going to be on the Doge mega carrot head neon hut oligarchy. I mean, these guys are going to lose a lot of money. They made a few 20, 30, 60 billion in the last few weeks with the stock market going up and down and them playing, they know which way it's going to go because of what they're going to do. Anyway, I want to hear what you think about what's going on. What's happening with the world. And think about that. Come on back and think about that. Make some statements. I've got my glasses. I can read. We're going to have something to the order of 8 inches of rain between now and Saturday. That's a lot of rain. You may not see me for a while. Oh, here's Johnny. Let's see what Johnny has to say. Hey, what do you have to say, Johnny boy?
Eddie Van Halen down dirt to you. Axl Rose is in kindergarten. Axl Rose is in kindergarten. He looks like a child. A redheaded stepchild.
That's Johnny boy. And Carrot Head's going to make him auxiliary king. Praise Jesus. Praise God. Oh. Johnny is truly totally whacked. Mm. 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 You know, I play lots of social media, YouTube, because those guys kind of really do spend some time thinking about what they're going to say and writing it down and preparing it. And me, I just kind of swing with it. So let's see what these guys are saying. Mm.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. The top-ranking career U.S. Treasury Department official, David LeBruck, has been forced out of the agency after he resisted a demand by Elon Musk and his associates at Doge to gain access to the government's vast payment system, which disperses trillions of dollars in federal payments each year. Trump's new Treasury Secretary, the billionaire Scott Bessent, ended up giving Musk access to the system, which includes sensitive information about taxpayers, Social Security recipients, government contractors, including Musk's rivals. Musk is also accused of waging a takeover at the Office of Personnel Management, where career civil servants have been locked out of computer systems. For more, we're joined by two guests. Waleed Shahid is Democratic strategist. His new piece on Substack is headlined, "Elon Musk is Staging a Coup." Waleed was previously the spokesperson for Justice Democrats and former senior advisor for the campaigns of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman. We're also joined in Washington, D.C. by Lindsay Owens, executive director of the Groundwork Collaborative, who says there are several reasons Musk wants to control Treasury payments. None of them are good. Okay. Waleed Shahid, let's begin with you. What do you mean that Elon Musk is staging a coup?
So if this story was taking place somewhere in Central Asia or in Africa, the United States media, the United States State Department, international institutions would likely refer to this as a coup. A billionaire industrialist who donated $300 million to a campaign is installing his personal loyalists in key parts of the federal bureaucracy. This is essentially Viktor Orban's playbook. And we need to know, why does a billionaire industrialist with millions in government contracts, military contracts for his private companies need the social security numbers of every American, needs to know what every single check that the U.S. government gives out to businesses, to charities? Why does this billionaire need to know this information? He was not vetted or approved by the U.S. Senate. He has a history of corruption for using public resources for private gain. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world, and in any other situation, this would be called state capture, and people around the world would be condemning it. But in the United States, we are not used to this kind of level of creeping authoritarianism, of plutocracy, of oligarchy so explicit. And we need to, this is as Representative Ocasio-Cortez said last night, this is a 5-alarm fire. Senate Democrats need to be communicating to the American people. And last night there was a call by Indivisible Action for people to visit their senators and call for them to grind the Senate to a halt, to call for investigations, and to know, why does Elon Musk need to know this information? Why is he showing up on Saturday to the offices of the federal government demanding the private information of citizens all around the country?
Well, Lindsay Owens, you say none of the reasons are good. Lay those out.
Yeah, absolutely. So for most Americans, this is the first time that they've ever heard of the Treasury payment system. So what is the Treasury payment system? This is effectively the piece of the federal government that cuts the checks, and they cut a lot of checks. This is $6 trillion a year, money that goes to individuals as Social Security payments for seniors, money that goes for organizations like Meals on Wheels to deliver lunches, foreign aid, as well as the funding that the government sets aside for key programs, paying its debts, making sure that we don't breach the debt ceiling and default on our obligations. So this is really unprecedented that Elon Musk has grabbed control of the keys of $6 trillion in payments infrastructure. There are a few reasons this could be happening. The first is, as your viewers know, last week, President Trump tried to end federal spending, just stop federal payments altogether. This was so outrageous and in violation of the Constitution that the courts intervened and said that he couldn't do that. What may be happening here is that Musk may be doing an end run around the courts, going straight to the source so that he can continue to stop those payments that the courts said needed to keep staying online. The second thing that may be happening here is this could just be a good old-fashioned cyber attack. Elon Musk could be interested in the Social Security numbers, the tax ID numbers of tens of millions of Americans. We know that he has partnered with Visa and is considering spinning out a payment system of his own. What we may have here is Elon Musk's attempt to get the private information for his own financial gain. The other thing that is incredibly worrying here is $6 trillion in spending is not just a lot of money. It's a macroeconomically significant amount of money. If Elon Musk starts tinkering with the code, the underlying technology that makes sure these payments go out seamlessly and effectively, he could inadvertently or on purpose bring the macroeconomy to a halt. I mean, this is an incredibly concerning seizure of government infrastructure, but it is also an economically significant moment in the country. So I couldn't agree with Waleed more. I mean, the word coup is the right word to be thinking about here, and Congress must intervene. I mean, if I was a senator, I think the most important thing to do is bring the Secretary of the Treasury to the Senate today to answer questions about what Musk has access to.
So the Treasury Department's Inspector General, who could monitor Doge's activities, was among the 15 watchdogs who were purged by President Trump. Who's now in charge of or overseeing Musk's team?
Yeah, Musk is in charge. So that's exactly right. Some of the key chokeholds here to make sure that something like this doesn't happen have been moved out of the way, studiously, exactingly moved out of the way. So President Trump fired the Inspector General of the Treasury and the top civil servant of the Treasury Department, the man who was the acting Treasury Secretary between the time that Janet Yellen stepped down and Scott Bessent was confirmed by the Senate, has also been pushed aside, resigned over the fact that he didn't want to give Musk, a private citizen, a billionaire, the keys to the Treasury payment system. So there is very little stopping Musk from taking this over. Trump and Bessent have really, given him a glide path.
So, Waleed Shahid, where is the Democratic Party on this? Where are the Democratic senators and Congress members on this? I mean, you have Hakeem Jeffries, who holds an emergency meeting of the Democrats after a judge stops the federal payments from going out to, stops the ban on federal funding.
So the Democratic Party in Washington is largely asleep at the wheel. They are acting as if they're kind of a librarian shushing noise in a crowded room. They are they're still believing in the normal procedures, normal decorum, normal that everything here is the normal transition of power.
They're not
And they
believing.
still
They're
believe
in
that
on it.
what
They're
Elon
part
Musk and
of the
Donald Trump are
hoax.
doing is just a libertarian reform of the government, not an oligarchic, plutocratic takeover of a private billionaire who is seeking to know, potentially seeking to know what his competitors might be doing with government contracts. He has private information that Elon Musk has contracts with international governments all across the world. But the Democratic Party is not able to put forward an opposition message right now because they feel like this is normal. And that's why it's so important for concerned citizens all across the country to twist the arm of your Senate Democrat. Go to their office. If you go to indivisible.org today, you can find a way to join your local chapter. And all around the country, whether your senator is a Republican or a Democrat or independent, they need to hear from concerned citizens because the Democratic Party doesn't move on issues of oligarchy, of plutocracy, of taking action unless their constituents show up in person and demand that they hold hearings, take the bully pulpit in the media, and also grind the Senate to a halt until we know why does Elon Musk have this information, someone who is not elected.
So the Democratic National Committee on Saturday elected the moderate political insider Ken Martin as chair, despite calls from voters to urgently switch gears and respond to working people's needs following the party's crushing defeat. Though it wasn't a major numbers defeat, but it was a defeat in November. What do you think of Ken Martin? Where do you think it's going?
So the DNC is largely at this point a fundraising vehicle for the presidential campaign. I hope that Ken Martin reforms the party to do things like what I'm describing. The Democratic Party should be holding daily press conferences every morning to explain to working class and middle class Americans why it might hurt their pocketbooks for Elon Musk to have this information from the Treasury Department and from the OPM, that Elon Musk has a history of wanting to use public resources for private gain, that Elon Musk is someone who is live tweeting that he wants to cut the federal government's debt every day by billions of dollars, and one of the only ways to do that would be to begin to privatize Social Security. This is what the DNC should be doing. Now, Ken Martin, we had lots of members of the uncommitted movement at the DNC who were being personally bullied by their DNC state parties, and Ken Martin thankfully did intervene to make sure that that didn't happen, and so that was my only personal interaction with him, and he went out of his way to make sure that our uncommitted delegation was treated with respect. Other than that, I don't know that much about him, but I'm looking forward to hopefully he can put together a working class populist agenda for the party that isn't just a fundraising handoff.
So, Lindsay Owens, DOGE is not a formal government agency, right? Which means that it doesn't fall into any category.
Yeah, look, I think when President Trump announced that Elon Musk was going to be running the Department of Government Efficiency, there was a sort of tempting fantasy that maybe Musk, a successful businessman, could come in and restore some efficiency in government, maybe modernize some aspects of government that could use some updating. I mean, I think with this weekend's seizure of the Treasury payment system, we can be crystal clear in putting that fantasy to bed. This is Musk determining who is going to get funding in this country, what programs are going to be funded in this country. And remember, Musk isn't a disinterested party here. As we've talked about, he has many federal contracts himself, billions of dollars this year alone to his companies, SpaceX, Tesla, and X, formerly known as Twitter. But he also is interested in cutting this funding for a very personal reason, which is he is interested in paying for the tax cuts that Congress is teeing up this year. They are estimating $5 trillion in tax cuts, mostly going to the wealthy and corporations. And DOGE is the entity that is supposedly going to find the money, find the savings to pay for those tax cuts. So I think we can sum it up this way. Elon Musk is going to pay for his tax cut with your Social Security. That's really what we're looking at here. That's what DOGE is up to.
Lindsay Owens, we're going to have to leave it there. And I just want to give Waleed the last word. 10 seconds. What should people do right now?
People should go to indivisible.org and visit their Senate office and demand an investigation of Elon Musk, and that Senate business should come to a halt.
Now, why isn't that happening? Why isn't the Democrats screaming to high heaven? Why is everything just, and not slowly moving? This is like, once they unplug all the software and none of the government offices work at all, except the ones they want, what are you going to do about that? And if, Downey can sign executive orders renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and he's setting up the world's largest prison at Gitmo. Good luck. Now, I'm a white male. And I'm wearing red. I'm totally mega. And why don't you put me in charge of the National Endowment of Art? Why don't you do that? Here we go.
In other news, North Carolina residents are going to be happy to hear this. It just came out. There's a new website where any North Carolina resident, as long as you live within a zip code in the state, you can apply to have your auto insurance rates reduced significantly.
I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Siegel.
And welcome to this preview of Shrinking Trump.
On our show this week, we focus on Elon Musk. And from a psychological perspective, we argue that he is someone with great intelligence, but terrible hypomania. That is, he is acting out and acting quickly and breaking laws, all because Donald Trump gives him permission. Right, John?
Yeah, I mean, people are shocked at the rapidity, people are calling it a blitzkrieg, of democracy destruction and institutional destruction. But as psychologists, what we're trying to point out is it feels like a manic pace because there, in fact, are hypomanic people who are driving this effort, and especially Elon Musk, who is bragging about working 20 hours a week and bringing beds into the old executive office building and basically doing the same thing he's done when he's destroyed his companies, which is to kind of move in and break shit and ask questions later.
Along with our discussion of Elon Musk and other moments in the news from this week, we also have a wonderful guest, Professor David Ost, who is an expert on Eastern European political history, and he'll give us some real perspective on the rise of the right in the contemporary age.
I sometimes refer to Elon Musk as sort of the Darth Vader to Trump's emperor. The emperor never does anything, right? He's just this shadowy old sort of figure, if you know the Star Wars movies, But Darth Vader is his general, who's extraordinarily powerful and able and destructive, right? And he's the one that actually leads the wars against the other planets and takes over. So Musk is that young buck that has the energy and the mental clarity to actually, and now, of course, it's not just Musk. We've got the whole Project 2025 team. So I think there was a certain hypomanic, rageful energy that all of these people have. Hegseth just can't wait, to get wasted and lay waste to the, the Department of Defense. So they're all raring to go. But I think Elon Musk is in a uniquely powerful position, and I think he's in a little bit of a class by himself, both in terms of his power and in terms of his hypomania. So I just want to start out by looking at 3 tweets that Elon Musk made. That looking at this through the eyes of a psychologist, it's quite clear we're looking at someone who is hypomanic. Doge is working 120 hours a week. Our bureaucratic opponents optimistically work 40 hours a week. That's why they are losing so fast.
Now, that is one of the most hypomanic things I have ever heard.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Expert.
I work 300 hours hours a week and everyone else works 40, so I'm going to beat him. Okay. All right, let's look at this next one. We spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. Could have gone to some great parties, did that instead. The reason I wanted to point out this is one of the things about people who are hypomanics, they're very arrogant and, they can be very, also very reckless. And here's how obscene this is. This is the richest man in the world terminating aid to the poorest human beings in the world.
Me.
One of the questions we've been getting from, our listeners, but also that everyone's asking on TV, all the talking heads are asking, right, is we're seeing this attempted authoritarian takeover. It seems to follow a lot of the typical playbooks of other authoritarian leaders, but people are asking, where is the resistance going to come from? Because right now it's not that clear, right, where it's going to come from or how it's going to emerge. And so I was so excited to hear we were going to be talking to somebody who studied solidarity, because if a movement ever came out of nowhere, right, to challenge an authoritarian and bring down an authoritarian system, that's it. So really, you are, in a sense, the man of the hour, because history rhymes. Where's our American solidarity? Show it to me, brother.
Well, thanks. Look, of course, here's the thing. I mean, resistance never comes out of nowhere, and so there's always got to be some kind of preparation for it. I mean, in Poland in 1980, there had been strike movements in these key cities in Poland. In 1970, again in 1976, people were working underground there. There was an authoritarian communist system without a free press. Ironically, that may be an interesting topic to talk about, because one of the strange things, although when you think about it, maybe not so strange, is that when you had a explicitly authoritarian dictatorial system, the Communist Party encouraged a.
Okay, let's see if this $900 a month senior food allowance is legit. Hello, is this the senior allowance line?
Yes, it is. How may I help you today?
Is it true that I can get a $900 monthly allowance for seniors over the age of 64?
Yes, that is true. Would you like to claim yours today?
Yes, that would be great.
I just need your first and last name to start, and an age confirmation.
Stephen Williams, and I just turned 66.
Excellent. Okay, just to let you know, this $900 a month senior allowance is meant to help with groceries, rent, utilities, prescriptions, and various other essential needs.
So I can use this at Walmart or Target for food?
Yes, you can use $900 a month at those locations and many more. I can send you the full list. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to email them. And on that note, congratulations. You have been approved for the full.
Johnny boy. Hey, Johnny boy.
Bowl of soup. I'm hungry. Give me that bowl of soup. I'm hungry.
You're not hungry.
I just got down from New York City. How's everybody doing after the floods? Everybody okay? Oh, I gotta get out of here. Oh, back to New York City, to the streets of the sewers of garbage and filth.
$900 a month senior allowance, and you should receive it in a couple of business days.
Oh, yeah. That's our boy.
When you can't take your bed to this.
Against stupidity, we are defenseless. That is a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer,
Hey, Fish.
an anti-Nazi German theologian who was executed by Adolf Hitler in the final days of the Nazi regime in 1945. We were reminded of that quote in a recent New York Times column by David Brooks, the conservative columnist David Brooks, writing about stupidity. The column was written at the end of the first week of the new Trump presidency, and in it, David Brooks wrote, "We're going to have to learn a lot about stupidity over the next 4 years." It was, for me, the most.
Give me a break. Where you had this carrot head for 4 years. We don't have to learn about stupidity. Stupidity we need to learn about is our stupidity, how stupid we are. To expect that this illusion of democracy never existed, that we are just pawns, criminals, conscriptees, as what's his name is the prison planet. Pretty much. It's going to have to be. If you can stand up, be counted just to yourself, right? If you can, be in constant contact with the creator force of love's co-creation and be there in the moment, right? Be there in everything you do. Hey, honey bun. Oh, what? I didn't hear what you said. So that's our boy, and he is doing his job, showing us stupidity. Showing us. Johnny is the perfect example of an American citizen. That's John. Me, you, the cadre, not so much. We're kind of individuals. We're kind of, lone wolves. Wolves are the very interesting animal. They're the only animal that doesn't kill for fun. Only animal that stays married, right? Only animal that when their mate dies, they don't rush off and get laid, right? And they're not screwing everything in sight. They are totally monogamous once they commit. And the cockroaches are all over the deep green, right? But they don't understand that the deep green is a sacred site. It's sacred. Coal mine, canary in a coal mine. That's our Johnny. The coal mine of, he is, the coal mine he's in is in Plato's cave, right? He's got his neck bolted to the wall. All he can see is the shadow. He can't see reality. He can't walk out into the light. And what we are experiencing and what this, every morning I wake up pretty much dead. And I basically say, okay, take me where I'm ready, or tell me what to do. And that's why I'm the doula of Bob's co-creation, because I serve that, period. That's it. Yeah, I'll eat a donut. Yeah, I'll have, go on and talk to you guys. Yeah, I'll, do a little errands here and there. But those are just mechanisms I use to involve myself in love's co-creation, right? Otherwise, I'd just be sitting on my front porch looking at the grass. And that's good too, And I'm going to be doing more of that, right? So, and no one really. So one of the cockroaches, who's been in prison, and his wife got divorced from him, and she said, I don't want that guy ever in my life again. Well, what'd she do? She's shacking up with him again, right? And he has these really, obnoxious little dogs, and she hated them, and now he's got more obnoxious dogs. And so, he was supposed to help me fix the road. Him and the kids and their friends, they're the ones who go up and down that road all the time. Me, not so much. They're the ones who totally destroyed it. They just, it's this other guy's fault. They always find fault with other people. They never take responsibility. So I said, so what's your next day off? Thursday. I said, okay, Thursday at 11 a.m., not too early, not too late. It's not raining. Let's start working on the road. Okay. They never showed up, right? So I just waited for him by the side of the road for a few hours because it's beautiful there, right? long as the kids aren't on their motorcycles stinking it up, I just sit there and watch everything in beauty. And I showed you what the roads look like. And again, that is an example of how the cockroaches don't understand the dynamic of beauty and love and co-creation, because they're destroying everything just for chump change, right? And no one else has moved in to the deep green. There's 30, 40 lots. No one else, because it's like, forget about it. It's like no one can stand being. It's so beautiful, so this, but the roads are totally eaten up because the deep green doesn't want them there. Right? Sabrina Wallace, she's interesting. Yes. What do you think of Sabrina? Have you watched Dark Journalist? Let's see. I love Sabrina. So let's look at Sabrina. Let's see. What happened to Google? Sabrina Wallace YouTube. Sabrina Wallace YouTube.
Hello.
Hi.
Everything is okay? You done?
Yeah, I'm done with that. I'm having dessert. I went and got some donuts next door. I'm just waiting for a friend. No one ever lives up to their word,
Yeah.
They're like already an hour late.
As a data network, body area network. So why don't we need a brain chip? Because you've been wireless for 6,000 years. Chinese medicine, the meridians, chakras, those are nodal points on your body. Electromagnetic telemetry. So
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Trump administration's giving hints it may ignore a federal judge's ruling restricting Elon Musk and his associates in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, from accessing the Treasury Department's critical payment systems. In his decision, U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmeyer warned about the, quote, disclosure of sensitive and confidential information and the heightened risk that the systems in question will be more vulnerable than before to hacking, unquote. Vice President Jake.
Yeah. So see the difference between those two? Democracy Now!, which isn't really democracy, and that girl giving you really, really important information. Very similar to Cliff Hahn. Let's see if we can get Cliff. Because his things are extraordinary. Let's see. Cliff High, YouTube.
Okay, here we go.
Cliff.
Test. Yep, we've got it. Okay, so today is April 19th. It's 8:23 a.m. This is the third attempt to get this subject through censorship. I had 2 interviews that didn't pass a YouTube algorithm and didn't get put up on YouTube. So I'm going to try it again this way. And so the subject today is that it's an op, and as many people are now starting to recognize, and I'm calling these people my black checkmark people because they recognize that we've got a bioweapon. And so so my black. Yeah, I've got new ones. Hang on. There we go. So my black checkmark people are like George Webb, Paul Cottrell, Stefan Molyneux, anybody basically. There's, Iran, big chunks of China, big chunks of Russia, and all these people that understand we're dealing with a bioweapon. And we now have some understanding that we need to pass on, some things we need to consider, and then we'll jump into the bioweapon economy, which is going to occupy us for a number of years. So the first thing is, it was deliberately released. If you go and look at George Webb, if you go and follow his work, if you look at a number of these other individuals that are tracking the links between Fauci and HIV patents and these HIV inclusions in the COVID, which we've known since December, were repeatedly denied and forced to be taken off the internet by the Chinese Communist Party.
So this is 4 years ago.
Okay. It's June 14th, 9:01 a.m. here on the Pacific coast of North America. Wonderful, wonderful North America. But it's like the rest of the planet now. We're getting all kinds of strange energies from space. This is a brief, hopefully, video about WuSci or woo-woo science. As we go forward into these next 15, 18 years, as we're going to restructure the social order in basically within humanity, but seriously within North America, a lot of the old underpinnings of control structures that were related, a lot of underpinnings of the old control structures will fall away. And these will fall away because they are actually bogus claims to science and not real at all. Very much like Fauci's claim that, we're going to have 28 million people dead here of the bioweapon that he paid to have engineered. The generalized social structure is under a great deal of stress because of fake news, fake money, divisive politics, Communist Party of China fucking around with our social order and trying to destabilize the Republic of USA and turn it into a communist dictatorship. And all other kinds of.
So that's our buddy Cliff, and that's 4 years ago, right? That's what he was talking about 4 years ago, 2021, right? And all of these guys, see, the thing is, everyone that I showed you and 09, what you brought to light with that sister, Sabrina, they all have great information, but you have to be the lens to look through it, right? And John Boy, Canary Kid, he keeps jumping in to give us a grounding in how insane the general public is. John isn't a one-offer. He's just not a nutter. I mean, he has the, psychological homeostasis of Neon Musk, of Carrot Head, of Marble Malcolm Mitch, little teeny boy penis micro dude, a faceless, meta, all the above. And these guys are just retreads of the other faceless dudes like Mr. Carnegie and J.P. Morgan and Getty and the Kennedys. You have to realize that Joe Kennedy was a swashbuckling gangster, and he wasn't just a gangster of selling whiskey. He was a gangster of destroying the American economy. He went from selling booze. He took a few million, got into the stock market, kind of learned about it, learned all the little ways of ripping people off, like shorting things and doing this and forcing economic trends so you could bet on whether they were going to go up or down. That's what Morgan did. That's what Rockefeller did. That's what Getty did. That's what all of those guys, built more, every one of them, right? And as gangsters, like the sinking of the Titanic basically murdered all of the old wealth that J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller and those guys weren't old wealth. They were new wealth. They were the new Turks. And they wanted to do certain things, and the old guys with money just kept standing in front of them, right? And so what did they do? They killed them on the Titanic. And it was like a scam, as out of any other scam, because J.P. Morgan owned Starline, which the Titanic ran under, right? So J.P. Morgan owned the Titanic. And one of the biggest shipbuilding yards in the world was in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. And that's where all the Starliners were. That's where the, state of the art. It was like having SpaceX, right? And so he builds a number of these queens, right? And he has one of them, the first one that goes out and is doing its, little test run, and it runs aground. It rips a hole in the whole side of the boat, right? And so it was named something out like Larry, right? And the next boat that's coming out is going to be Titanic. So they put the boat that has a big gash in it back in dry dock, and they basically put, paper towels over it with a little aluminum foil, right? And these, that Larry and the Titanic are carbon copies. Say, look, you get them either one, you can't tell which boat you're on. And there's like 3 or 4 of them, right? They're Starliners, right? So, and Boeing, that's why Boeing picked the Starliner, that name came from those boats and the Titanic, and Boeing is in the essence of being the Titanic. So anyway, they, so the really rich go to Europe. They go to Europe, they go to Florida, they go to here, they go to there, and they're the idle rich, right? And so the Gilded Age folks, the Biltmores, the Astors, all of those guys, right? And they owned all the banks, right? And so what happens is J.P. Morgan has this big party, and he has it on board. I'm gonna, everyone's gonna go back to America from Europe, and they're gonna be on the Titanic, it's not really Titanic, it's a Larry. So they have big party, and he's got all the great art of the world. It's gonna be like this. Is gonna be, you're gonna be in a floating art gallery, and you can spend all the time you want with that Monet and et cetera, et cetera. So a big party, and everything's wild and crazy and beautiful. And then before the boat takes off, he takes everything of value, right? They had all these great pianos. He takes them off, takes all the art off, takes everything off, and the boat takes off into the ocean. And the rich people don't wake up until, and they're looking around, and where's all those paintings? What happened to those pianos? What happened to this? But they're getting, free booze and really yum food and a lot of interesting entertainment, and there are girls down below to service the men, and so all of that's going on. That's fine. And the captain, who is like really great famous captain, and he's on board, and he wants to make it from Belfast to New York, and set a record. But he is taking that boat right through iceberg land, and he is normally you'd go about 5 miles an hour tiptoeing through the iceberg land. But he is going 30, this thing can do 32 knots, but it takes to stop or turn takes about 6 miles, right? So he is going into this iceberg lane, but it's a beautiful night. There's, not a cloud in the sky. The water is like glass, and he's just shooting across. Everyone's asleep, and the old guys are back, playing poker and drinking and getting blowjobs from the girls from down below, and everyone gets thrown asunder because the captain goes, "Oh my God, there's an iceberg right in front of us, hard right," But if he had just full reverse, but he didn't. He said, pull ahead but turn right. Basically, what happens is if he had put it in full reverse and just plowed into that thing, it would have crunkled the front. But by going really fast and going over this way, that place that had the big gigantic rip along the whole side of the boat hits the iceberg underneath the water and does a cut. And so all of those, this is an unsinkable boat because it had all these compartments they could turn off and keep from flooding the rest of the boat. Well, that big across the whole side sank the boat within a few hours, right? And there were basically, the Star guys sent out a message, just like, Neon Husk would do off of Star Blowjob. Basically, hey, turn off your radio, don't listen to anything. It's okay. It's a beautiful night. Just go to sleep, right? So there were a ton of boats all around the Titanic. But they had turned off the radio, so they didn't receive the SOS. They could have saved everybody, right? They were like within 5 miles, like within 15 minutes, there were 3 or 4 boats. They could have taken everyone off and saved them, but they didn't. And these Titanic shooting off fireworks, and there's one boat that's like 10 miles away. Goes, look at that, what's with that? And the guy, it's like 4 a.m. Oh, they're just shooting off fireworks. Rich people, what do you know? That's why. So everyone who died on the Titanic was standing in the way of heaven. They didn't want the Federal Reserve. They didn't want a private corporation that they didn't own to run the economic system of the United States and the world, by setting interest rates. So what we're having with Neon Husk and his Wing and Winkies, he's got like 10 teenage boys there. I wonder what he's doing with them. And they're not sleeping, and they're doing, whatever they're doing. And they're just, taking all the data away, and they are, putting backdoors so they can go visit the software anytime they want to. And that's what's going on. And see, the United States, it's like too big to fail. It is, because it'll take the rest of the world with it. So we can have, and I was telling that scholastic dude who constantly said, Palestinians are just stupid. They don't know. They can't play the game. They just don't. And I keep saying, they're the most educated race on the planet, and they are per capita. There are more Palestinians who go and get a college degree, become a teacher, and do the right thing than any other race, and that's why they're unstoppable. Even being, they have no air force, they have no real way to go after. And what's interesting? When Israel was put up, they didn't say this is, they constantly say it's the Jewish state, but it's not. In there, they don't even have a constitution. They have, like a mission statement. And basically it said, we will take any Jews, and they don't have to even be Jewish. We'll take any religion. We're totally open. We're, what do they call it when you have a government that's not religiously connected? Anyway, that's us. But if you want to be a citizen in Israel, you have to be a Zionist. That's the storyline of that. And how's that doing? So what do you think, right? Ringing Cedar. Yes, my favorite, that nice Russian woman who created community all over Russia and all over the world. She has, ringing cedar communities everywhere, right? In the United States, all over the place. And she gets a lot of guff, right? But she is a person who served. She's a doula to love's co-creation. She really is. She's like a younger sister of the old crone. And so here we are, almost an hour. What time is it? It's 12:30. So, how important the skin is. What do you mean by that? How important the skin is, I mean, our skin is the largest organ in our body, right? She also teaches how to engage your biofield. Right, your biofield is that pranic source. When we breathe, we're breathing in the shamanic prana of love's co-creation. It's not incandescent light, it's photonic light. And that's the field that's around our body, right? That's kind of what our immune system is, right? And it gets, energetically, we have all this YouTube and Wi-Fi and 6G and blah, blah, blah. Those things are attacking our biofield, right? And they're pretty much, I live in a very, very rural place, and, up until 4 years ago when the cockroaches came in seriously and wanted their, wide band, and so they got it, because they're rich, right? But it keeps breaking. I mean, trees keep falling on it. We had a storm. They spent 10 million of your tax dollars to make the internet wideband for the rich, not guys like me. To get it into the deep green, it's going to cost me $900. When the rich people buy a lot of the new gated communities, it's free for them. This is, it's like, and what's beautiful about all this ain't going to take 100 years. This is going to be like, just look what has occurred in the last 3 weeks, and each day it's more insane than the last 3 weeks, right? So, just the Super Bowl with, every time Donnie goes back to the cockroach pit in Florida to play golf, it cost us about $10 million, flying Air Force One him from wherever he is to the cockroach pit, and that's Mar-a-Lago. It's like, I remember before he bought it, it was a cockroach pit, and it was very interesting watching him buy it, how he kind of conned everybody, and that's, he's a grifter. They're all grifters. All the Congress, all the senators, all the Supreme Court guys, they're all frigging grifters. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Liberal, Labor, whatever, you're a grifter, right? Unless you're there to serve love's co-creation, I don't really see anybody doing that. Mario Cuozo or any of those people who are like speaking for the people. They're just making sure they keep their job. Right? That's what got them voted in, and that's what they'll keep doing. Nothing different, not changing anything, not making it better. Just, going on like they're going. So, that's what it is. What can I say? You're going to have to kind of deal with that. Now, I realized this was going to happen like 40 years ago, and I did all kinds of stuff to try and maybe, make it better, help fix this, take care of those people, blah, blah, blah. Now, the bottom line of all of that was that it was fun to do. I enjoyed it, helping people, making other people's lives better than they had. And not just by giving them stuff, but giving them tools and mechanisms that they can lift themselves up to a better life. And if you have anything to do with that, that's probably one of the most rewarding things you can do. Well, none of those politicians are doing that. No. So, and if they, cut social work, there's maybe 20% of America's population, you cut their Social Security, I'll have nothing. That will put, so there's 340 million people. 20% of that is like close to 50 million people. Like overnight, you'll put 50 million people on the street. Like when basically, Ronnie Reagan became president, one of the things they got rid of, was there was a pretty good health care for the most people who couldn't take care of themselves. They didn't have family. They had a lot of hospitals that like 6-7 million people were in. And Downey closed them, just pushed them out the door, locked it, sold the property to developers, and moved on. And they put between 6 and 20 million people on the street in less than 2 weeks. And I was in this little town called Sayville, and I was had this little real estate business and electric business and contracting business, and it was right after the 1986 saving and loan debacle. So all of real estate was right in the. You could buy anything for nothing, and all the people who were building before that, when it was a big boom, they were all bankrupt, right, and or either in jail because they were trying to sell crack to leverage all their debt. But anyway, so I buy this one building that was really great. It was about an 8,000 square foot building that had a beautiful upstairs, and the guy set it on fire for the insurance money. And to get it, he basically had to make the building whole. So they put a new roof on, and they structurally, it was made out of concrete, so the walls and everything were fine. The whole inside was still charred. And they cleared all that out, except for the, things look charred. But all the crap, before they put the roof on, they just took everything out with a little cat and threw it in a dumpster. So it was scraped clean, demoed, and with a brand new roof and well-sealed walls and new windows, right? And I bought that, it was downtown Main Street, Sayville, just on the edge, just like one, this thing was on the corner of this street and the main drag Sunrise Highway. And just on the other side, there was a strip mall that had been their version of the Miracle Mile, right? That's where all the fancy mink stole guys and the diamond guys, but then so it was all boarded up, right? So I basically bought the thing on the corner, knowing that very soon those things would be open because the rich people still had houses towards the Hamptons. This was close to the Hamptons, right? So anyway, Islip was just on the other side of that town, and closer towards Islip, the crappier the neighborhoods were, right? And so there was a big federal hospital that had over, 20. Yes. What do I owe you? What do I owe you? Okay. Because my friend obviously is not coming. Do. So anyway, Ronnie Reagan closes out a hospital, kicks him out, puts about 20,000 people on the street, right? They have no place to go. So they do have, half the people who couldn't figure out what to do kind of just stumbled around and became the homeless. That was the first big explosion of homeless. So how much is that? $7. $7, okay. Bring Mary back change. Anyway, so there I was, redoing the building. So it was like a 4,200 square foot ground floor. Really nice, perfect office space, right? There you go. Thank you, bud. Mm-hmm. Here you go. And and it had a big backyard, right? And there was an alley, so there was a road behind it too. The building next to it was a similar building to this, right? But hadn't burned down. And what they did was the county rented that building and stuck 60 of those people who were in that hospital into that building, right? And gave them no care, no medicine, no nothing. Just put them in that thing, right? Put mats on the floor, and there were 60 people in there. So I'm working away, and so there's a big backyard. So I find, I start looking for different contractors, and there's a plethora of them because they're all out of business, right? And anyway, that's a whole nother story because I built a whole, I found some guys who somebody owned this excavation company that had bulldozers and cranes and tractors and 100 acres out there where, Long Island Expressway stopped on the other side of Islip and then became Sunrise Highway and 25A. And I knew that when I saw that property, I said, ooh, gold mine. And I found these black guys who basically ran the business. And the guy who owned it, he had died. His son owned it, but didn't run it and was like in New Jersey somewhere. And he just wanted to sell it, right? And so I bought it for nothing. I mean, nothing. Probably, between the property and the equipment that was there, it's probably $250,000 worth of stuff. I bought it for $15,000 because he thought it was worth it. Just got all these black people there and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no problem. Here, cash. Here's a check. Thank you very much. Had my lawyer and bango bingo. It was part of the. When I said to the black guys, I said, listen, I'm going to have a lot of work, and I want you to own this building. I'm going to own the property. You can stay on it. Don't have to pay rent. But in the future, it's going to be something else. But I want you. All that equipment is yours. My lawyer is going to set you up with an LLC, and you're going to do all this work for me pretty much at cost, right? And I'm your first customer, right? Because I still hold the paper, right? Okay? And so I said, it was, one of those opportunities that, and the father was a war hero from World War II, but he was black, so he got because he saved, Omaha Beach. And his sons were also military heroes, and none of that family got any kind of recognition whatsoever. I mean, the guy, the grandfather, he was a sergeant, master sergeant, and everybody was dying. All the officers were getting shot by the Nazis, and they couldn't get through the berms in France. And so there was all this steel the Nazis put in to keep guys from just washing up on the. He took the steel, cut it up, and put big teeth in front of those tanks, and they just kind of pushed right, like a bulldozer pushed through the berms, and that's what saved them. And they made him a major right then and there. The general guy who was in charge goes, "You're a major. You're in charge of all, physical logistics. All of this. And you had the top, and your first and last word. Whatever you say goes. My generalness is 100 behind you. General Eisenhower agrees. You're the guy." So he did, and was a major through the whole thing. Became a colonel, lieutenant colonel. And when they cashed him out, right? 2 years after the war had ended in 48 or so, they cashed him out as a sergeant. not a lieutenant colonel. Anyway, so that was those guys, and they were my right. And I was a contract, a guy who had a contracting business, but he just lost it all. And he used to sit across the street watching me do all the work myself. Right. One day he says, "Don't you have any help?" I said, "Not really. I'm keeping the costs down." He goes, "I have no place to live. If you would just feed me, and I see that you live here. If I could live here too, I could be a great help." I said, "Sure, okay." And he came over and asked me that because there was policemen who used to hang out in the parking lot over there. And he was always just jerking off. And he used to come over and talk to me, right? And I used to talk to him, and we used, I said, "So where's a good place? Where's a good diner?" And he took me all the good places to eat around there, and introduced me to a lot of people, and which was good because I knew that he was a sergeant. He was kind of the guy out on the road, keeping an eye on all the guys who were out on the road. He had the authority, so he just was in the parking lot jerking off, listening to the radio, and doing other stuff he was doing. Anyway, he once came over, and he had just gotten a new 9mm, and he's showing it to me. And we talked about guns. I told him my gun stories with J.P. Hoagland and all of that. And so anyway, so he comes over, and he's got this 9mm, and he's showing it to me like this. And he's got the gun like this, and the barrel is facing this big plate glass window. It wasn't safety glass, and it was gigantic. It was like 9 feet high by 12 feet long. It was like if it cracked and came down, it'd be in like 1,000 razors, right? So it's like, this is like deadly. So I had no idea how to get rid of this window. And he's like, "Hey, look at it." Pulled it right through. Luckily, there is a wall behind it that was like sheetrock, insulation, cinder block. So, and just stopped right there. And so, and no one else was in the building. And the cracks went and just came down like safety glass, but it wasn't. Just came down in shards and smashed on the sidewalk. And the guy goes, "I gotta go." And that's when Gary, I think was his name, basically came over and said, "I think you need a hand." And then he said, "I have no place to stay. I'm sure you've been watching me watch you, and this is an opportunity. I'll take care of this." He goes, "I see you got plywood, you got 2x4s, and I'll take care of this, right?" And I had a dumpster in the back, and I had these big, heavy garbage bags made out of paper. They could put anything in, right? And I, a hand truck. So I had all the tools. He cleaned it all up, put it all in those bags, and the door was a big dumpster. So he just kind of wheeled it in, put those bags in the corner, and then he built a thing and put plywood on it, bang, bang, boom. Like 2 hours, he had it all done. And I'd been thinking about how to take care of this for like a week, and this happened, right? So he was as talented, but no one would hire him because his business failed. He tried to, sell crack to make money to pay off his debtors, and that didn't work out too good. And he lost his wife, he lost his family, he lost his everything. No one would talk to him, no one would give him a job. So I hired him, right? So by the end of 6 months, by the end of that building, and we have 3 other buildings to do, basically, I had a great crew. But so before him, I was going to put skylights because upstairs were space for 2 really high-end apartments, and it had really high ceiling, but they, put like hung ceiling, so it was only 8 feet, but the ridge was like, 25 feet from the floor of the second floor. So the windows were these little slidey things, right? So it was darker than dark. And so I was going to put, 10 skylights, Each one would have 2 bedrooms. They'd each have 2 skylights. The living room would have 3, and 1 over the kitchen, 1 in the bathroom. Every space would have 1 to 3 skylights. So it would be super bright and beautiful. And each one would have decks on it. So you could and the back walls of each would be sliding, all glass, and sliding doors out to the deck. Anyway, so we're doing all of this, and but I'm still up on the ceiling putting these last of the windows up there. How much juice do we have left? Ooh, we're almost out. I gotta say goodbye. Sorry, kids. Leave you in the hang. But basically, what happened was, I'll make this quick. I'm up on the roof watching, and every day guys would walk, guys who had been in a mental institution were now in the house next to me, would walk out and walk into Sunrise Highway, which is a big highway, and get run over. Day after day after day, until the 60 guys were dead, and then they closed it and moved on. So that's the end of the stream. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Remember to subscribe and like and do all that stuff. Okay, bye.